1817. On a farm in Tennessee, something strange began. At first, it was only a small sound, scratching inside the walls at night, footsteps moving across the ceiling, and whispers coming from the darkness when no one was there. At first, the Bell family thought it was an animal, maybe rats, maybe the wind. But as time passed, whatever was inside that house became more dangerous. Something invisible began striking people. It pulled a sleeping child's hair. It dragged blankets off the bed. And according to the stories, it even knew the names of the family members. Then one day, people asked the presence a question. "What are you?" And from somewhere inside the house, a voice answered. "I am Kate Batts." Kate Batts was said to be a real neighbor, a woman who had once fought bitterly with John Bell over land. Some stories claim that before she died, she cursed the Bell family. Soon people began calling the presence the Bell Witch, one of the most famous hauntings in American history. Even Andrew Jackson, the man who would later become President of the United States, was said to have visited the house, only to leave in fear. But the most disturbing part is this. The presence did not only torment people. Some believe it killed a man. (1817). John Bell and his family were living on a farm near the Red River in Tennessee. From the outside, they seemed like an ordinary family. They worked the land. They cared for their animals. They lived a quiet country life. But then, strange things began happening. According to the legend, the first sign came when John Bell saw a bizarre animal near the farm. It looked like a dog, but its head resembled a rabbit. John Bell fired his gun, but the creature did not fall. Instead, it disappeared into the darkness. After that night, the sounds began, scratching inside the walls, knocking on the floor, a heavy chain being dragged across the house, and footsteps moving above the ceiling as if someone were walking there in the dark. The Bell family slowly stopped sleeping. At first, they tried to hide their fear from one another. Each of them wondered if it was only their imagination. But when they realized they were all hearing the same things, the fear spread through the house. The worst part was the sounds did not feel random. They felt intentional, as if someone or something was moving through the rooms, watching the Bell family. And soon, the presence inside the house went far beyond making noise. The person who suffered the most was John Bell's daughter, Betsy Bell. At night, something pulled her hair. Some accounts say her sleeping body was dragged from the bed. Others describe the sound of a slap, as if an invisible hand had struck her face. But no one could see who was doing it. Even when the family was in the same room, all they could see was Betsy, terrified and helpless. The attacks continued. On some nights, her blanket was ripped away. On others, someone seemed to be breathing right beside her ear. The Bell family began to break under the fear. Then the presence started to speak. At first, it was said to sound like a low whisper, but over time, the voice became clearer. It called family members by name. It responded to questions. Some records say it laughed, as if it were mocking the people in the room. What made it even more disturbing was how obsessed it seemed with Betsy. It behaved as if it had chosen her, as if tormenting her was not random, but deliberate. Soon, the terror was no longer limited to the Bell family. People began to believe there really was something inside that house. The story of the Bell family began spreading through the community. At first, many treated it as a rumor, but as time went on, people started visiting the house for themselves, and many claimed they heard the strange voice. The presence did not simply speak. According to the accounts, it knew things it should not have known. On some days, it recited Bible verses perfectly. Some claimed it described events happening far away. But the most chilling part was this. It also mentioned secrets known only to the family. It called people by their names. It exposed things they had tried to hide. As time passed, the voice became more and more human. It carried conversations. It made jokes. It mocked people. Then one day, people asked it again, "Who are you?" And from inside the house, after a quiet, laughing sound, the voice answered, "I am Kate Batts." The room went cold. Kate Batts was not just a name. She was a real person. She had lived near the Bell family. And according to the stories, she and John Bell had once fought bitterly over land. Some accounts claim Kate Batts held a deep grudge against him. Some even say she cursed John Bell before her death. So why did the voice use her name? Was it truly the spirit of Kate Batts? Or was something else using that name to make the fear feel personal? The villagers did not know, but slowly they began to believe one thing. There was something inside the Bell house that could not be explained. And eventually, the story spread far beyond Tennessee. As the Bell Witch story spread across America, even powerful political figures began hearing about it, and eventually the most famous legend connected to the case emerged. Andrew Jackson, the man who would later become President of the United States. According to the stories, Jackson decided to visit the Bell family himself. At first, he did not believe any of it. He reportedly thought the haunting was nothing more than superstition or an elaborate trick. But something strange happened before his group even reached the house. According to the legend, Jackson's wagon suddenly stopped moving. The horses refused to pull. The wheels would not move, as if they had become trapped in the ground. The men pushed the wagon. They whipped the horses, but nothing happened. Then suddenly, a laugh echoed through the darkness, and a voice said, "All right, you may enter tonight." Moments later, the wagon began moving again, but the worst part came later that night. One of Jackson's men reportedly called himself a witch hunter. According to the story, he carried a pistol loaded with silver bullets. The man confidently entered the Bell house. Then only moments later, screams exploded from inside. Witnesses claimed the man sounded as if he were being beaten by something invisible. He stumbled out of the house in terror, shouting and screaming. The rest of Jackson's group was horrified. According to the legend, nobody slept that night. And years later, a famous quote became attached to the story. "I would rather fight the entire British Army than face the Bell Witch." Whether Jackson truly said those words, or whether the story grew over time, nobody knows for certain. But one thing is clear. The Bell Witch legend had become one of the most feared supernatural stories in America. And from that point on, the presence inside the Bell house seemed to grow even more dangerous. As time passed, John Bell's health rapidly declined. At first, it looked like exhaustion, but soon the symptoms became far more serious. According to the records, he struggled to speak. Some accounts describe paralysis-like symptoms. The family became terrified. But what frightened them most was the feeling that the presence had specifically targeted John Bell. At night, strange sounds surrounded his room, whispers near his bed, noises in the darkness. Some stories claimed the entity directly admitted that it hated him. The Bell family continued living in fear. John Bell grew weaker and weaker, and eventually the family realized he might not survive. Then one night, a voice reportedly echoed through the house. A laughing voice, cruel, mocking. And then it said, "I will make sure that old man never recovers." The family was horrified. John Bell's condition continued getting worse. And slowly, people began believing that whatever haunted the Bell house was no longer playing games. Then, not long afterward, the family discovered something beside John Bell's bed. A small black bottle. In 1820, John Bell became too weak to leave his bed. And near him, the family discovered a strange bottle. A small black glass bottle. No one knew where it had come from. Then the story became even darker. According to the legend, the Bell Witch claimed it had poisoned John Bell. Inside the bottle was an unknown dark liquid. At the time, nobody knew what it was. But according to some versions of the story, the family tested the liquid on a cat. Not long afterward, the cat died. Soon after, John Bell died as well. And from that moment on, many people became convinced of one horrifying idea. The Bell Witch had killed a man, but the story did not end there. According to the legend, the presence remained inside the house, even during John Bell's funeral. As mourners sang sad hymns, people claimed they heard another sound somewhere nearby. A strange, humming voice. But it did not sound mournful. Witnesses described it as vulgar, almost like the kind of song someone might sing drunkenly inside a tavern. Some even claimed they heard laughter mixed into the song. The mourners were horrified because it sounded as though the presence was celebrating John Bell's death. And after that day, the Bell Witch became one of the most infamous supernatural legends in American history. Even now, people still investigate the story. Even today, the Bell Witch remains one of the most famous supernatural legends in America. Some believe the entire story was mass hysteria. Others argue it was an elaborate hoax. Some researchers even suggest the Bell family themselves may have staged parts of the haunting, but the stories never disappeared. The scratching sounds inside the walls, the invisible attacks, the voice that knew people's names, and the entity that called itself Kate Batts. If it was all a lie, then why did so many people describe the same terror? And if it was real, why did the presence focus so obsessively on John Bell? Perhaps the most unsettling part is this. More than 200 years later, people are still asking the same question. What was really inside the Bell house? If this story left you wondering, the next one is waiting for you. Subscribe and stay with us.